Cheaters are everywhere. There are many different types of cheaters, and each one has a unique story to tell. Since we're living in a world where everyone is getting married and divorcing, divorce is a very humiliating ordeal. You lose a lot of self-esteem, but it's good to have friends and family that support you through it all. Life is a precise gift and too valuable to waste on feeling sorry for yourself. Today's story is about, I was betrayed by two of the most important people in my life. I felt anger and a huge loss. Okay, let's go to the story. My name is Henry. When last time I relayed how I came home to find my loving wife of 15 years with my best friend, Martin, I learned how this had been transpiring for some years with me languishing in ignorance. Compounding the problem was the revelation that my youngest son wasn't mine, biologically, but Martin's. Without thought, I reacted in what seemed to be the most appropriate manner. I applied the Board of Education to my best friend's seat of higher learning. After the resulting arrest and incarceration, I decided to do some self-examination and investigation. It is here I continue the story. The next few days were busy with Larry Cushman preparing the legal documents and sorting through our financial records. The children were with Kelly and Paul. Julie was to be released from the hospital, and I had to go back to work. There was a lot to get done in a short period. First, I had some deep thinking to do. I spent several hours each day thinking and sorting through my feelings. I was betrayed by two of the most important people in my life. I felt anger, hurt, and a huge loss. I wanted the divorce. There was absolutely no doubt. My heart told me I would not be able to trust Julie again. As whole Martin was history, I would have my closure with him. There were the children to consider. Diane brought up the fact no matter what happened between us, the children had to be considered in my decision. Diane, like so many others, believes you should stay married for the children. Others believe children are better off with parents trying to make their marriage work because they want to survive for themselves. I believe children need to know their parents will always love them no matter what. They were not responsible for our breakup. In my case, the children were old enough to understand the difference between love and acting. Gradually, over time, I reached my decision. It was time to talk with Stephen, Rachel, and Zachary and see how they felt. I was so proud of our children and was not prepared for what they had to say. Rachel figured out quickly what was going on between her mother and Uncle Martin, and she had already discussed it with her brothers. To say they were hurt is an understatement. They were mad as hell with their mother. Based on conversations with the children, I had to change my plans. Children know more about what's going on than we give them credit for. The children helped me move my things into the guest room. I could not bring myself to stay in our old bedroom, much less sleep in the bed where my slut wife Julie ducked my best friend Martin. The next day I went and picked Julie up from the hospital. Martin would be in for another week. This gave Larry and me the time we needed. When I arrived, Julie leaned up expecting a kiss. Obviously, she thought being allowed back in the house she was forgiven. No, I did not kiss the slut. I did thank the nurses for taking care of her as I wheeled her out to the car. She got in the passenger side as I held the door. Julie said her goodbyes and thanked them for their kindness during her stay. We drove home. It was the first time we had been alone in over a week. Henry, we are going to have to talk about this sooner or later, she began. I turned onto K Street. Yes, we are, but not yet. Wait until we get home and I will explain things. Julie turned in her seat. So, are you filing for a divorce? I don't want you to. I looked over at her, irritated. Are you having trouble hearing? I said I would explain things when we get home. She was fighting back tears. Henry, I love you. I have loved you ever since we met. Bye. I cut her off. Julie, one last time, shut. But the bitch wouldn't listen. Do the children know? Do they hate me? I took a deep breath. Julie, shut up. Yes, they know their mother is a slut. She stopped talking and started crying. Finally, I pulled into the garage, got out with her small case and went into our townhouse. I didn't help her into the townhouse. I told her the children were staying with Kelly and Paul for now. I took Julie's case up to the master bedroom. I was putting her case on the bed when she walked in. Henry, what happened to our wedding picture over the mantel? She asked, looking around the room. Wordlessly, I turned from what I was doing and just looked at her. She nodded and said, is it in the basement? No, it's the ashes you saw in the fireplace, I said. Henry, that picture was priceless to us. It was the best picture from our wedding. I loved that picture, not to mention what it cost Martin to have it done. I just turned and looked at her and said, it's not worth shit to me and I don't give a damn what Martin paid for it. He's lucky I didn't shove it up his ass. She looked around with a puzzled expression. Henry, where is your alarm clock? I turned and said, okay, this is the way it is going to be. First, this is your room. Julie started to speak. Shut up and listen. I have not slept in this room or bed since I caught you ducking Martin in it. I barked. She looked down and nodded. I went on. For the next few days we are going to go through the motions of living. When Martin gets out of the hospital next week, we are all going to have a little meeting. Julie shook her head. No, I was a fool. I know he was your friend and what we did was wrong. I love you. I was stupid, but Martin pushed things and I let it get out of hand. I don't want to have anything to do with Martin ever again. Well, that's just too damn bad. You should have done something about it 10 years ago, don't you think? Yes, I know about Zachary. I had often read about it, had never really believed the color could leave a person's face. I was wrong. With this revelation, Julie's face had actually turned white. Henry, I don't know what to say. Good, don't say anything. Not until we have Martin here. In the meantime, I suggest you start making some decisions about who you are, what you want in your life. I turned and left the room hearing her sobs. I won't go into all the posturing, pleadings and door slamming which followed for the next week. She mended quickly, even expressing an interest in our getting together for a little make-up loving. I remember looking at her and shaking my head no. I knew she figured if she could get me into bed she could assume all was forgiven. The next day she came again playfully trying to kiss my neck. I pushed her away and told her to stay away from me. On Saturday she brought out her big guns. She came to the den wearing the short red teddy that had always given me an instant hard-on in the past. To her surprise, I had no reaction. Upon seeing my ambivalence, she began to cry and ran up to her room slamming the door. I, on the other hand, laughed and went back to reading my book. I talked Martin into coming over for a meeting on the following Wednesday. Update. The day finally arrived and we met in the living room. Martin was sheepish and if he noticed the picture missing from over the mantel, he made no mention of it. Being a good host, I ushered them to their seats, asked them to sit, and offered them some coffee. There was no reason to be totally uncivilized. We were interrupted by the doorbell. I opened the door for my attorney. Larry had told me not to talk with them alone, so I decided to follow his advice. I introduced everyone and explained that Larry was here to monitor our meeting. We sat and stared at one another for about 30 seconds before Martin said, Henry, bro, I am so sorry. I know how it must have looked, but I want you to know this was the only time anything like this has ever happened. Julie loves you. I love you. You're like my brother. I held up my hand. How many times have you ducked Tom's wife, Martin? I asked. Martin frowned. What? You said I was like your brother. The only brother you have I know of is Tom. I just wanted to know how many times you ducked Liz. Never, Martin sputtered. Then I am not like your brother, am I? I reached down beside me and pulled out the cricket bat. Martin flinched. Julie gasped and moved back. Julie started to say something. I cut her off with a look. Let's first get something straight. Some men would want to know when this started. Some want to know why it started, how long it lasted, where it was going. I thought long about this and you know what? I don't care. I don't give a rat's as if it started 10 years ago, 13 or on my wedding day. Little Zach is evidence of how far it went. I don't care if it started because of an accident, a moment's unbridled passion, my absence at some critical juncture of our marriage, or just plain treachery. All evidence indicates while it may not have been leading to wedding bells, it certainly wasn't going to stop if I hadn't come home unexpectedly one day in 15 years. I tapped the bat on the floor to emphasize my point. I paused and let my words sink in. Julie had her arms wrapped around herself. Martin was trying to sink into the love seat. I went on. You hurt me beyond all comprehension. You made me do something I thought myself incapable of until just a few days ago. You made me despise the two people I loved most in the world. I turned to Martin. You and I have been like brothers, as you put it, for over 25 years. We went to junior high, high school, and college together. No one celebrated your success more than I when you went to the majors. And when you had to leave, I wept right alongside of you. As repayment, you ducked my wife, had a child by her, and left me in the dark about the whole thing. You destroyed your own marriage because of your affair with Julie. He looked up. Where did you hear that? He hissed. I nodded to confirm his fears. Oh, yes, I spoke to Diane. She told me enough. I could guess the rest if I cared that much to try. But that isn't what we are talking about. We are talking about betrayal. Betrayal of friendship. Betrayal of your own vows and betrayal of a promise you made to me once. Remember? Martin looked at me puzzled. What promise? The one you made on my wedding day, where you promised to remember just whose wife Julie is. To my side, I could hear Julie begin to sob. I ignored her. I reached down next to me and pulled out a folded sheet of legal paper and tossed it to Martin. He picked it up and opened it. What is this? He asked. A request for a court-ordered paternity test, I explained. What? Are you crazy? He stammered. Martin, I know about Zachary. I know you think he is your son, at least biologically. Well, we are going to have a DNA test done and find out for sure. If it turns out you are, then you and my devoted wife here are going to tell Zachary, I said. Almost on cue, they both leapt to their feet. Julie was the first one to speak. Henry, what are you thinking? We can't tell a small boy that. He won't understand. Think of the damage you could do, she gasped. On the contrary, think of the damage not telling him could do, I countered. I turned back to Martin. If what I heard the other evening is any indication, you trotted him out and waved him around whenever it suited you. But that is over. Martin looked pained. Why, Henry? Why drag Zach into this? Yes, what good can come from ruining Zach's life? Julie piped in. More like saving Zach's life, Julie. I didn't start this. I certainly didn't want this, but I will finish it. He will be told and you too will do it. Let's not forget you two dragged him into it when you forgot a few things. Like you were my wife, and you were my best friend. Zach needs to live a life built on more than lies. Martin, there are sound reasons for this, not the least is evidenced in your own life. Why did you leave baseball? I inquired. Martin looked uneasy. Medical reasons, you know that. Update 1. What medical reasons? Never mind. I'll tell you. High blood pressure and neurological disorders. But Diane told me something else. You were diagnosed with the initial stage of MS, weren't you, Martin? Martin was stunned. It is the first time I can honestly say he was at a total loss for words. I reveled in it. Vainly, I looked for a way to make the feeling last longer, stay fresher. Presently he asked, Did Diane tell you? Yes. Isn't there a hereditary aspect to high blood pressure, Martin? Yes, there is, he answered. Julie came to her feet. You son of a bitch. You knew and never said anything. I stepped between her and Martin, more to protect her from following my lead and doing something foolish. You knew, she said to me. Is MS hereditary, too? I shrugged. I don't know. We need to find out. Anyway, that's not the issue, Julie. But it illustrates why Zach has to know if it is true Martin is Zach's biological father. Here I looked him in the face, my eyes boring into his. Sharing genetic content does not make you his father, Martin. I am his father. When he had the measles, I stayed up all night with him. When he was afraid of the monsters in the closet, I chased them away. Parenthood is not genetic. I took out a second sheet of paper and handed each a copy. This is letter from the lab that performed the DNA tests on the children and me. Yes, I had all 3 children tested. It states I am the father of Stephen and Rachel, and Zachary is their brother. However, I am not Zachary's biological father, unless my slot wife was ducking someone other than you. My guess is your DNA results will prove you are Zach's father. I took out another sheet of paper and handed it over to him. This is a restraining order. This keeps you from coming within 100 yards of me, my children, or my home. If you do, I will have you thrown in jail. Actually, it protects you too because if, after you leave here, I see you again too soon, I don't know what I would do. Martin gazed at the paper in his hand like it was a snake ready to strike. I consulted my watch. It goes into effect in about 5 minutes, so if you have anything to say, make it quick. After we have the test results back, we can decide when and how to tell Zach. As far I'm concerned, you are dead to me. I never want to see you, hear from you, or talk to you again. Do you understand? For once he displayed wisdom. He walked over to the door to open it. On his way past me, I said his name low and sweet. He turned to face me and never saw it coming. ... His eyesight cleared. He looked at me again with genuinely sad eyes. I heard a hushed, I am so sorry, and then he left. He walked out of my home for the last time, leaving Julie and I to face our own demons. Julie got up, went to the kitchen and poured herself a cup of coffee. Would you like some? She asked. I shook my head, so she walked back into the living room and sat down on the love seat. She took a sip of her coffee and looked about the room as if it was for the last time. Good. I wanted her to realize the severity of what she had done. I walked into the kitchen, pulled a tumbler from the cabinet and filled it halfway with Gentleman Jack and tossed in 2 ice cubes. Fortified, I returned to the living room. Julie's eyes never left me. I took a short swallow. Julie, this marriage is over and I want a divorce. She opened her mouth, covered her eyes, and cried. Then I continued, Julie, I do want to know one thing though. Why, Julie? No psychobabble, no justifications, just a simple why. Why do it? Why with Martin? She sat for a moment, thinking, and looked up. Because I could, she simply replied. Then she continues, that time you missed our anniversary, when the 3 of us were all supposed to go out together. I was angry. Martin was here that night and we went out to dinner together. Martin was always here. He was like a member of the family. Well, we got a little drunk. He came on to me. I was drunk and angry enough, I took him up on it. The sex was great. I didn't ask for a review or a blow-by-blow. I want a reason. She took a sip of coffee. Does there have to be a reason? Henry, sometimes people do things just because. I realize it was wrong. I'm sorry I hurt you. I've had all those hours in hospital to think about this, and the only reason I can come up with is I liked it. He had been here so often it was almost like having two husbands. After a while that was the way I felt about it, only it was even better. He was here when I wanted him and gone the rest of the time. I never loved him. I enjoyed the break every few months from our sex life. You were always a good lover. I never had any complaints, but every once in a while I wanted someone different. Martin was always here. It was just sex. You never missed it. He never had my heart. I nodded. I can understand part of that. Most people do things because they can, truth told. Thank you for being honest about it. Why did it have to be him, my best friend? Couldn't you have gone out on some pretext and had a one-night stand? Why let this go on for over 10 years? Update 2, like I said, he was available and very willing. By keeping it in the family, so to speak, I didn't feel like such a horror that I was really cheating on you. Haven't you ever wanted a different woman? Henry, one night of just sex with someone else. Nothing permanent. Just a night with someone different. Sure, most people do. I never acted on it, nor has any other woman had my child, I reminded her. She winced. So where do we go from here? I love you. I love you with all my heart. I don't want the divorce. What is a marriage to you, Julie? I asked. The question took her by surprise. She seemed perplexed for a short time, thinking. Well, it is a commitment, I suppose, between two people who love each other, a promise to always be faithful and be there for one another. Her voice trailed off with her last couple of words as she realized the gravity of what she had just said. I grinned. Yes, and where was I in all this? Where were the children? Where was everything we worked so hard to build? Let me tell you what marriage is to me. It is a union, a joining of two people's lives. You said it was just sex with Martin. Maybe it was to you, but the sexual union is part of that union. When you try to separate it out, you can't help it, but it only weakens the union. Marriage is like a body made up of all kinds of parts: trust, love, honor, sex, and respect. When you separate any one of the parts, you separate all parts of the marriage. When you have sex with someone other than your spouse, you cannot be trusted. You're not honoring or respecting your spouse, much less loving your spouse. How could you believe you could have sex without damaging the marriage? Tears came to Julie's eyes again. Henry, I am sorry. I am so sorry. I was stupid. I love you. I will do anything to keep our marriage. Just tell me what to do. I stared at her. To be honest, I believe you think you love me, but you could not do what you did and truly love me. If it was a one-night stand, maybe, just maybe, I could get past it. But this was an affair that went on for years and produced a child. But I didn't love him, Henry. Can't you understand? He is a friend, yes, but I never cared for him like I do you, she argued. I shook my head. He was just a duck buddy. Huh, that only makes it worse. If you could duck Martin without any problem, what makes you, or I believe you would not have found someone else to duck. It was just sex. True love is being committed to your marriage partner 100% of the time, not being a lying, cheating slut. As a lawyer, I would expect you to understand the commitment you made to me on our wedding day. You make me sick. You got your satisfaction and you never even considered my feelings or the children's. I just don't know you anymore, Julie. What do you want me to do? Henry, what can I say? Julie was beginning to accept that this may not go her way, and the consequences of her affair might be more severe than she thought. What surprised me was she couldn't fathom why I was so upset. She really believed there was a difference between what she did with Martin and what she did with me. She couldn't put it in the context of the larger issues. Julie, I will try one last time to reach you and then I'm done. All right, she said in a small and subdued tone. Julie, when you did this, you broke our marriage contract. You betrayed me and our family. I can't make it any plainer. I can't trust you. Up until a few days ago, I thought we had a very sound marriage. Now I find you've lied to me for over 10 years. I now know while I was telling you about my next trip, you were scheduling your next duck session with Martin. You say you love me and you had sex with Martin because you could. That tells me you valued ducking Martin more than you valued our marriage. Every time I look at you, I see you ducking Martin in our bed. But I didn't love him, Henry. Can't you understand? I love you, she whispered. I could not believe what I was hearing from this bitch. I took a breath and said, let me see if I understand your view of love. First, you decide it's okay to duck Martin on our anniversary because you're upset I'm out of town on business. The sex was great, so you continued to duck him. You had a child by him, and you still didn't stop. Diane divorced Martin because of your affair, and you still didn't stop ducking Martin. You continued to duck Martin over 10 years when I traveled. To make things worse, you wouldn't take time off from work to be with me, the husband you love, but instead scheduled time off to duck Martin, your duck buddy. You call this love? I call it being shit on. This is the type of love I can live without, I shouted. Final update. After taking a moment to control my anger, I said, what you and Martin did to me and to our family. Turns out most of our friends knew about you in his hall, while the children and I were in the dark. I'm going to find a new group of friends, since none of our friends told me you were a cheating slut. You and your lover ducked in our marital bed while our children were down the hall in their beds. You make me sick. Who are you? You're a lying, cheating wife. What do you want me to do? Henry, what can I say or do to save this marriage? I don't want to lose you. I gave her my best go-to-hell look and said, there is not one damn thing you can do to save this marriage, but you better find a way to save your relationship with the children. The children and I have had several intense conversations about you. She collapsed on the floor in the fetal position when I told her Stephen wanted to be called Trevor. He also wanted to know about legally changing his name. He'd told his teachers, his grandparents, and friends that he was to be called Trevor. She looked like she was in shock. She stood up, told me she was not going to give me a divorce and she wanted us to continue on as a family. I stood up, laughed in her face and said no way. I continue to be married to a lying, cheating wife. That led to a very bad exchange between us that got us nowhere. This came to a halt when I told her to shut up and listen. I told her we were getting a divorce the easy way or the hard way, but we would be divorced. I told her I was going to give her 2 options and she could choose one. Then I told her about my meeting with the children. I told them I was going to turn the basement into an apartment for their mother so they could see her anytime they wanted to. They did not like this idea at all. They were sad, mad and embarrassed their friends knew all about their mother. They wanted to move. I am very proud of my children, including Zach. They wanted to stay with me, so we planned to move to a new house and start over. Julie really began to sob when she heard the children wanted to move with me. I've rented a 4-bedroom house in another school district. When the children found out what was really going on and their friends knew about your affair, we agreed we needed to start over where we did not know anyone. The movers will be here tomorrow morning to move their things to the new house. You can keep the bed where I caught you ducking Martin. Julie got mad and told me to stop talking about her and Martin. I told her I could talk to her any way I wanted to. She was now free to duck anyone she wanted from now on without worrying about getting caught by her husband. After things settled down a few minutes later, I gave Julie her options. We would split everything 50-50. I would get the children and the grounds for divorce would be irreconcilable differences. She would make monthly deposits for their college education. I told her I would not keep her away from the children, but they would not stay overnight nor visit when she had mail company. She was responsible for making the house payments unless she wanted to sell, and then the proceeds would be split 50-50. She would also be responsible for her BMW. This was the easy option. Or we could do it the hard way, which is the way I wanted to go. If she wanted to fight it, I would seek divorce on grounds of her adultery. I would fight for full custody of the children and she would pay child support. I have all the proof I need, I reminded her, since I caught you in the act. There's also the police report and the hospital records to back up the charges. Don't forget about Martin's ex-wife and our friends. I don't believe I will have a problem getting custody of the children. I will seek child support and will fight to keep Zach. Neither you nor Martin would be considered a valid candidate as a parent by social services. Property would be split 80-20 in my favor. The house will be sold and you will have 15 days to move. Once again, I will not keep you away from the children, but they will not stay overnight nor visit when you have mail company. One of the conditions she hated was having to change her name back to her maiden name of Simmons. I did not want her to have the same last name as my children. I know it was childish, but I didn't care. Larry and I left to have a drink at the local pub, giving Julie time alone. I wanted her to think long and hard about what she lost and could lose. Epilogue. For several weeks Julie tried to reach me and make amends. I never spoke to him. I reported his phone calls to the police. Eventually he got the message. It's been 4 years now and Julie did select the easy way. We sold the house and Julie moved into a 2-bedroom condo. When she sees me she still tells me how sorry she is about everything. I still don't think she understands the pain she caused me or the children. The children and I are still seeing our counselors. We are moving forward with our lives. Trevor is 17 years old and a senior in high school. He has been accepted to UVA and looks forward to being a college freshman. Rachel is 15 years old. She is a sophomore in high school and ready to start dating, not to mention getting her driver's license. Zach is a 14-year-old high school freshman and very involved in sports. The DNA results revealed that Martin is Zach's biological father. Martin and Julie had their talk with Zach. It did not go well at all for those two. Zach told Martin he never wanted to see him again, that I was his father and always would be. Larry worked it out with Martin for me to adopt Zach and he's looking forward being a sophomore in high school. The children rebuilt their relationship with their mother. She attends all of their school. and social events. Anytime the children want to visit their mother, they pile into Trevor's car and go. They usually visit her twice a week. I started dating about 6 months after the divorce and could not believe the number of women interested in dating me. I guess word got out I honored my marriage vows and was a one-woman man. My children and friends keep hooking me up, so maybe I will find someone. When I find her, you can bet your last dollar we will discuss what marriage means to each of us. Right now, keeping up with 3 teenagers is a full-time job. I'm told Julie and Martin parted ways after our meeting. I guess it was fun. Thank you for joining us on Revolving Time, where we bring you real-life stories that explore the complexities of the human experience. We hope that our stories have provided you with insights, inspiration, and a renewed appreciation for the power of human resilience. Remember, this channel exists because of your support, and I want it to be a place where we can all come together, learn, and have a great time. Your feedback is vital, and I appreciate every single suggestion and comment you provide. We encourage you to subscribe to our channel and stay connected with our community. By subscribing, you will be the first to know about new stories and events, and you'll have access to a library of inspiring content. Thank you once again for being a part of our journey, and we look forward to sharing more powerful stories with you in the future.